Hey guys, I'm David DiMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
Welcome to Hair Loss Hope. And today we're going to talk about how a hair transplant can change your life. Looking at my own life, and I started going bald when I was about 20 years old. And by the time I was about 24, 25 years old, I was around Norwood 5 sort of range. And I would say that my hair transplant and deciding to go the hair transplant route for my life was maybe the single best decision of my life. I really can't think of anything that positively affected my life in such a easy way. I know that there's a lot of money and a lot of time and all those things that go into a hair transplant, but when I'm looking at those things, the amount of time, the amount of money actually, and the positive effect that hair transplant had on, I would say, my dating life, and all the incredible experiences that I've had, it's just unbelievable. It's actually like I can feel it. And I was talking to my friend Jay International the other day, and he just recently had a hair transplant done. And he was telling me that when he's just talking to girls, and he's married and everything like that, so he's not interested, but he could just feel that people were talking to him differently and treating him differently since his recent hair transplant. And it's kind of sad, and I wish that it wasn't that way, but I completely feel like that for myself. It was just night and day, the difference of the girls that were interested in me, the way people treated me just in business in my life. It's been probably the greatest return on investment of any investment that I've ever made. And I've made some pretty great investments in real estate and different companies. And yeah, this has been probably the greatest return on investment ever. And just in terms of the opportunities that I've had. I'll say after my first hair transplant, there was a girl who she's like the top dancer in the Philippines. Or at that time, she had literally won like every dance competition in the Philippines. She was gorgeous, always dancing on all these TV shows. And we got along very well, but nothing had ever really happened between us. We'd never, had anything more than just a friendship between us. And I went out with her one day after getting my hair transplant, and I'd also been out with her prior to the hair transplants. And I was walking around, and she was just being nicer to me, like more romantically friendly than she'd ever been before. And it was going really well. And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you notice anything different about me? And she just looked at me. I'll never forget where I was at. I was at Greenbelt in Makati, exactly like where I was standing and everything when she said this, because it was so profound. And I was like, this is such a huge change. I said, do you notice anything different about me? And she just looked up at me, a little bit shorter than me. And she goes, yeah, you look way better now. And just the way that that came out of her mouth, I'll literally never forget it. It was so sincere and so much like, okay, like now you're kind of more what I'm looking for. So a hair transplant can completely change the trajectory of your life. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, my story is a little bit different than David's, as many of you know. I always speak very highly of David. Of course, I'm a huge fan of him and everything that he does and who he is. And I always say, like, David, you were a pretty confident guy, without hair. Like I don't know if you needed hair. And I really believe that when we first started talking about David possibly getting hair, it really was different. It was just different from the first phone call. It was like, yeah, I'm looking at getting some hair and this and that. And then he's like telling me about, who he is and what he's done. And I'm looking at, his YouTube channel, and I'm just learning. And I'm like, I might be saying this for the very first time, but like, I don't know if this guy needs a hair transplant. And he was pretty bald. David was pretty bald. So to parlay on his success and what it's done for his life, he is a better version of himself. He is everything that he was, but he's better. And why do I say that? Because it's so funny how I'll hear men, and of course they come in with the wives and girlfriends and significant others, and they'll be like, well, I really don't know what I'm going to look like with hair. I've been bald for so long, and I don't know if it's going to kind of fit me, and I don't know if it's going to be, what we're looking for. And I'm like, I'll save you a lot of time going back and forth with this conversation. You're going to look like you. You're going to be the same guy. You're going to be the same significant other. You're going to be the same dad or whatever the case may be, but you're going to look better. And that's really what it comes down to.
Mhm.
People look better with hair. Somebody's going to argue out there that's not true. I know a bald guy looks better than when he had hair. I would argue that that's not true. And now he doesn't have any more options. So, you know,
Yeah, something Steve and I were talking about yesterday. Even guys that look good bald, someone like the dude from what was the movie that was really popular, like Prison Break, the TV show I used to watch. Someone like that. He looks great with a shaved head, right? Beautiful face. This dude. He still looks better with a shaved head and a hairline. Like even people like Vin Diesel, who's like a very well known, famous guy for being bald, right? If you look at him in the Fast and the Furious movies, at least the last one I watched, there's like 20 of them now, but on one of the ones I was watching, he had a hairline. I don't know if it's SMP or they put it on with makeup, but they put on like a fake hairline on him to make it look like he was a guy who shaved his head but still actually had hair. And it's why, because even that shaded SMP kind of look framed his face and actually made him look better. So even though he looks good bald, he looks better bald as a guy with hair.
yeah, and as far as my story goes and how it's changed my life, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, think about where I've come from. After 5 surgical operations on my head to help my hair, I was not impressed and didn't like it and put a wig on my head. So, that wasn't exactly life changing. Maybe it kind of, motivated me to put a wig on my head. I didn't put the wig on my head to cover up the hair transplants. I put the wig on my head because the non-surgical replacement gave me what I was looking for in a hair transplant. So my journey started all over again when I was like 30 years old. And then, my donor hair was chewed up. I was one of these sob stories, one of these sad stories that how come I didn't get what everybody else got? Until recently. And when Dr. McGrath did my hairline, put 2,000 grafts in my hairline, built out my temporal peaks. And I'm telling you now, I feel like a rock star in my own living room. I mean, I'm finally able to celebrate myself and talking to you guys on YouTube when instead of making excuses for Steve, like, well, Steve like he's a little bit older than me, and Steve kind of his donor hair got chewed up, and we're always making excuses for why my hairline was so high and why I never really achieved what I wanted. I had people asking me, hey, when are you going to get a transplant? I've had like 8 procedures, and I'm like, that's not really cool. I mean, wasn't offended. But now I can actually understand what it's like to have something that you're looking in the mirror and you really like, and you're like, yes, I set out to get that. That frames my face. People tell me I look better. It looks natural, and I'm rocking my life. So it is my story, obviously unique over the course of the last 35 plus years, trying to figure this thing out. Now that I've finally figured it out, I finally found the right doctor, the right clinic. They took amazing care of me. I'm just blown away. It is literally life-changing at this point in my life, and I'm just celebrating every day.
I'm thinking now to it being almost like business in a way. You can imagine a guy that's got a little shop where he sells different things, a little gift shop type deal. But he loves inventing things. He loves inventing different electronic ideas. And he's got this little shop. He's got a little nice family. His family loves him. He's got a good life. He can always pay his bills. But he's always working on these little inventions, but they keep blowing up. None of them do well, right? But that's really his thing, is like these inventions. And he'd love to be able to have this business that was based off of his inventions. And it's like, I feel like being bald is almost the equivalent of everyone just going to you and going, yeah, but you've got a nice family. Like, you can pay your bills. Everything's good. Like, you're fine. You don't really like need to like have all your inventions work and have everybody buy these things that you've invented. And then suddenly one day that invention's worked and everybody goes, oh my gosh, you're the guy that invented the telephone. And it's like that, it's that kind of feeling. And you're like, yeah, I'm the guy who invented the telephone. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. I know that if you make the right decision, a hair transplant can totally change your life.